Risk Africa TV is joined now by Prabashni Naidoo, Head of Legal for Marsh Africa. Thank you very much for joining us.
Pleasure.
Prabashni was part of a discussion this afternoon with many members of the regulatory body, the FSB, with various stakeholders around the regulatory environment at the moment in South Africa. Prabashni, you made the comment that there really is a need and a responsibility for insurance businesses to proactively lobby and engage with government where there are issues and where there are problems which are unsatisfactory. Is your sense then that that's not happening enough?
I think that the lobbying is happening in pockets. So there isn't a concerted effort to say we've picked up key issues in the regulations, and from those key issues we have a fundamental issue with this, and then take it to the next level. So there are discussions happening, and the regulator is open to discussions. But what happens once you've submitted your comments on the documents is you then see the next version of the document. So I think there is a gap there, and there needs to be more active lobbying. We all have different interests. So the broker fraternity has its own interests, the insurer groups have their own interests, and then you have the consumers. And I think, you know, we touched on it in the earlier discussions, is around where is that lacking and where are they in the whole discussion? Because if anything, there should be lobbying from those groups on their specific interests.
You come from the intermediary perspective, of course. So from that intermediary perspective and with your legal perspective, what is your sense around the suggestion that the industry is becoming over-regulated with the possibility that it's going to stifle innovation, that it's going to lead to loss of human capital, etc.?
I think the message today has been clear. The changes are here to stay. So I think we must adapt and realize that we need to make fundamental changes to the way we run our organizations. I think there's a sense of fatigue. It's been many years of new regulations being brought out, and we've had to make various changes to our businesses in the way we run our businesses. So I think at this point, companies are tired. People are tired. It makes the industry not an exciting place for new joiners. I spoke to a group of graduates recently, and that was the last thing on their mind, to come and join an insurance company.
You mentioned the consumers and consumer groups just there, or just now. What's your take on, in the discussion earlier, there was also the kind of sense that the consumer is front and center, is really what's driving all the change in the industry. But how aware are consumers of what's actually happening, and how do we know that that's really what they want and what they need?
I think that's the million-dollar question, and what also came out of today's discussions, and I think it was a light for me as well, was that have we had those discussions? Have we asked people what it is that they actually want? And yes, it speaks to product development and claims and all of those other things, but also fundamentally, what are people's expectations? The really good example was shack insurance. You know, there's probably a really big need. It could mitigate a lot of loss and a lot of suffering within the low-income groups, but has anyone actually spoken to them and said, is it something you would be interested in? And yeah, so I think there is a gap there, and people need to now start those discussions probably more actively than before.
And just, I don't know if it's something that you are able to comment around, but are there platforms that exist? What would be the platforms to have those kinds of conversations?
I'm not aware of any. There might be, but I'm not aware of any consumer platforms or groups. I know that there are consumer advocacy groups, and we've got the Consumer Protector. There are different mechanisms that consumers' voices are heard. But in terms of insurance specifically, I don't know where that discussion is being held.
Very, very interesting. Thank you so much for joining us, Prabashni.